Let's jump right into this explainer, tailored specifically for grade 12 learners who are serious about mastering their final poetry exams. Look, if you've ever stared blankly at a poem and felt like it was written in some sort of secret code designed just to stress you out, you're definitely not alone. But today, we're going to crack that code together.
Welcome to your Ultimate Exam Hackers Toolkit. We pulled this entire session directly from the June 2023 Grade 12 exemplar papers. Meaning we aren't just casually analyzing poetry today, we are looking at exactly what examiners literally want to see written on your answer sheet.
So here's our game plan for today. We'll cover cracking the sonnet code, spotting figures of speech, decoding nature's moods, summer versus winter imagery, and finally, nailing the long questions.
Section 1. Cracking the sonnet code, deconstructing Keats.
All right, picture you're in the exam room, and you face a structural question exactly like this one. It's asking you to identify the specific type of poem and justify it by filling in the blanks. To secure full marks here, you absolutely can't just guess. You need precise, textbook terminology.
And what's really fascinating here is how the official marking guideline perfectly maps the Italian sonnet structure to a thematic shift in seasons. See, the poem is an Italian sonnet simply because it has 14 lines in total. But it's not just a random jumble of lines. The first 8 lines, that's your octave, focused entirely on the intense, sweltering heat of summer. Then, bam, there's a turn. The final 6 lines, the sestet, shift completely into the freezing cold of winter. Literally, the structure itself is the meaning.
Moving right along to Section 2, Spotting Figures of Speech, Nailing Poetic Devices.
Now, you are inevitably going to see a multiple choice question just like this, asking you to identify the device in one specific line. In this case, on a lone winter evening when the frost has wrought a silence.
Here's the trick. Personification breathes human action right into inanimate concepts. Frost cannot physically craft or wring silence with its hands, right? That's a distinctly human action. And that's exactly why B, personification, is your correct answer. Actually, we see this exact same device pop up in another exam poem, Hard to Find, where words are described as playing some twisted game. Words can't play games, humans do. So spot the human action, and you've nailed the personification.
Let's quickly tackle another variation, identifying a poetic sound device, but this time without the safety net of multiple choice. You have to pull this answer straight from your own brain.
This is where creating simple mnemonics will totally save you in the exam room. For example, if you just remember action, animals, jumping, hedge to hedge, you'll easily remember that the repeating H sound is alliteration. Or picture a roaring river from the phrase roll, rock, roaring. Those repeating R sounds instantly remind you of consonants and alliteration. Just build these little memory tricks while you study, and the exam is going to feel like an absolute breeze.
Section 3. Decoding Nature's Moods, How Words Shape Tone.
I want you to just listen to the aggressive, wet, and wild vocabulary Hopkins uses in Inversenade. Words like roll rock, roaring, pitch black, and fell frowning. The poet isn't politely telling us the water is moving fast. He's physically forcing this chaotic, rushing energy onto the page through these intense, almost harsh word choices.
And guess what? The marking guideline explicitly rewards you for connecting that roaring alliteration directly to the energetic, borderline violent tone of the first stanza. The examiner really wants to see that you get it. Tone is no accident. It's carefully constructed by comparing that rushing water to a roaring, wild animal.
Okay, let's look at a classic 2-mark trap. This one trips up so many students because it hides a figure of speech inside what literally looks like a basic grammar or punctuation question.
Here's your rule of thumb. When you see a capitalized emotion smack in the middle of a sentence, identify it as personification immediately to secure those 2 marks. By capitalizing the word despair, Hopkins takes a mere feeling and morphs it into a powerful, dangerous entity, kind of like a monster that's capable of physically pulling a person down into that black, drowning pool of water.
Section 4. Summer versus Winter Imagery, Visualizing Contrasts.
Let's bounce back to Keats for a second to see how imagery completely flips the poem's atmosphere. In the first half, Keats builds this immediate atmosphere of just oppressive, exhausting heat. The birds aren't just warm, they are faint with the hot sun. The heat is so intense that the entire natural world literally needs a timeout, hiding in the shade.
The memo explicitly contrasts this summer luxury against the frosty, isolating, lone winter evening, just to highlight nature's unbroken thread.
Summer has the faint birds and that hot sun. Winter, on the other hand, gives us frost, silence, and the shrill song of a cricket by the stove. But here is the crucial takeaway. Despite this massive shift in imagery and temperature, the core message holds strong. The music of nature survives both extremes.
Section 5. Nailing the long questions. The 3-mark blueprint.
Now, for the ultimate exam challenge, the open-ended 3-mark questions. These are the make-or-break moments on your paper. This specific question tests your true, deep understanding of the poem's core theme. It asks for your opinion, sure, but beware. The memo has a strict, hidden formula for actually awarding those 3 points.
I'll tell you right now, you will not get a single point just for saying yes or no. That is written right there in the marking guidelines. To grab your 3 marks, you absolutely must execute these 3 steps perfectly. 1. Take a firm stance. 2. Back it up with specific examples from the text. And 3. Link it right back to the overarching theme of the poem.
So, what does a full mark answer look like in the real world? Well, you start by taking a clear yes stance. Then you substantiate it by noting that both the grasshopper and the cricket offer a soothing effect to extreme climates, right? The grasshopper song balances out the oppressive summer heat, while the cricket song brings warmth to the freezing winter cold.
And for step 3, you ground it in the theme. The big, overarching theme from the marking guideline is that the poetry of the world, whether we're in summer heat or winter frost, never truly dies. The sounds of these insects, they are the eternal poetry of the earth.
We've cracked the sonnet structure, decoded the hidden figures of speech, and totally mastered the 3-mark blueprint. With these analytical tools in your back pocket, you aren't just reading poems anymore, you are literally reading the examiner's mind. So the question is, how are you going to approach the unseen poetry waiting in your final exam?